Hello, I'm Richard Murphy. I was asked recently why it was that the balance of payments is no longer given much attention within the UK economy. Now, the balance of payments is literally how much we owe other countries for the goods and services that we buy from them compared to the amount that other countries owe us for the goods and services that they buy from us. There was a time when these things roughly equated. The UK roughly sold pretty much to the rest of the world as it bought from the rest of the world. But that's a long time ago. It's now a considerable time in the past that we made these things balance. Now the UK invariably imports more goods than it ships from the UK. And although services tend to help balance the equation, we do export more proportionately in terms of services than we buy in services. We do end up with net deficits in the UK. So we have suffered long-term balance of payments deficits in the UK. The consequence is actually quite surprising because we owe people in sterling almost invariably because we're in the fortunate position that the currency that we have, sterling, is not a reserve currency like the US dollar, but it is a pretty popular currency with regard to international savers who want to hold it. And quite strangely, they hold a significant amount of UK government debt as a result. Over £400 billion worth of UK government debt is held by foreign governments and companies who are owed money by the UK but are happy to leave it in the UK in sterling. Do we have a crisis with regard to the balance of payments is really the subtext of the question that I was asked. And my answer is, well, look, yes and no. Yes, it would be good if the UK could actually make something because, frankly, what we have seen over the last 20 to 30 years is, of course, the financialisation of the UK economy. By that I don't mean just that we've seen the rise of the City of London. We've seen that even in those companies which appear to be manufacturing, the focus within the senior management has all been about how can they extract maximum profit with minimum effort, minimal investment, minimal change to increase productivity and therefore minimal increase in our competitiveness as an economy as a whole. Profit extraction rather than profit making has become the skill of UK management, and it's hardly to our credit. So there is obviously an underlying problem here, but it is not in the balance of payments that that problem exists. It's in the fact that we have simply not invested in capacity in the UK economy since Margaret Thatcher basically set out in the early 1980s to smash manufacturing, which was the power base of the unions, and so put in its place financial services which were not union-based. The Conservative Party legacy from the 1980s has been a destruction of the power of UK manufacturing and an increase in our balance of payments of deficit. Do I think that that is an issue we need to correct? Yes, I do. Do I think that it would be better off if we did correct it? Yes. Do I think it's absurd, for example, that we need to be fitting 20,000 heat pumps a week in the UK at present, and at the moment, not a single one is made in the UK, and none that are fitted in the UK use UK steel? I find that bizarre, especially at a time when I know, for example, that Rolls-Royce is planning to make 9,000 engineers redundant in Derby, all of whom could be engaged in a heat pump manufacturing process, buying and using British steel in the process to deliver the critical part of the Green New Deal that requires that we make our houses thermally efficient. So the indication of the fact that we have a balance of payments deficit is that we need to transform British industry. But why doesn't it matter in the way that it did when, and I can remember this because I've been around for a while, it did in the 1960s and 1970s, when it was the focus, sometimes even of general election campaigns. It is thought that Harold Wilson lost the election in 1970 because there was a sudden balance of payments deficit on the UK account with the USA as a result of the import of 2 jumbo jets by what was then the BOAC, which then became British Airways. That's how important this issue once was, and that's how insignificant it now is. Well, the reason why it doesn't matter now compared to then is that in 1970, when that election took place, the UK was on a fixed exchange rate with the dollar. That means, literally at that time, you were on a fixed exchange rate. Let me cast my mind back. It was $2.40 by then to the pound. Can you imagine that? $2.40 to the pound? Yeah, that's what it really was. And we were in crisis because not long before it had been $2.80 to the pound, but it was fixed. So if there was a threat to the UK as a result of a balance of payment deficit that required us to make a payment, we had to go out and find it or earn it. Or we had to spend our gold reserves to make good the deficit to whoever had a claim on us. And that meant that this was a very real financial obligation. We either had to generate currency or use reserves to pay the debts that we're owing. Now that is not the world we live in now, because we have had floating exchange rates since 1980. This is another Thatcher legacy. In fact, it was 79 when she floated exchange rates. And the floating exchange rate here basically said there is no fixed relationship between the pound and the dollar, the pound and the euro, the pound and the yen, or wherever else you want to think of. And in fact, exchange rates have moved to reflect changing productivity. That is fundamentally what it is thought that actually drives the movement in exchange rates. So the UK dollar exchange rate has fallen from $2.40 to under $1.40. We can't do a comparison, of course, with the euro from 1980. There wasn't a euro in 1980, but what we do know is that that exchange rate has fallen too, largely in comparison with Germany, which does sort of drive the productivity-based value of the euro, to the disadvantage, of course, of some member states. The point is, we have had this flexible exchange rate. Therefore, if our productivity falls, if there's a large surge of imports, frankly, the person who agrees to buy or sell from us in sterling, and they do, takes potluck on what they'll be paid. They'll always be paid sterling. There always will be sterling. They can always be paid sterling because it does always exist. What it's worth to them varies. They take that risk. We no longer do. Therefore, this isn't a matter of such priority for us, because so long as people are still willing to be paid in sterling, and not only are they willing to be paid in sterling, they're willing to save in sterling at present, so it doesn't appear as though there's any change likely in this. Whilst the balance of payments matters at the level I've explained, because it indicates a failure of the UK to invest properly in manufacturing and productive capacity to meet real needs like the Green New Deal and what we must have to make our homes thermally efficient, it doesn't matter with regard to the threat to the UK economy that it once did because of fixed exchange rates. So, for the person who asked me the question, look, rest easy. It's not great, but we're not under threat on this issue. For once, I can say, don't worry. There are bigger things to get stressed about, and our balance of payments is not one of them. Thanks for watching. If you're interested in what I've been saying in this video, please subscribe. There is a button below the viewing screen. If you're interested in what I have to say on Twitter, I'm at Richard J. Murphy on that medium. If you want to look at my blog, that's taxresearch.org.uk, and we have a Facebook page as well, Richard J. Murphy. So one of those things will get you more information on what this video series is about, and I hope I'll see you again soon.